In 1977, NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft captured an image that should not exist, hidden in the data stream from Jupiter's orbit, embedded within seemingly random cosmic radiation patterns. Scientists discovered a mathematical sequence that matches no known natural phenomenon. The sequence repeats precisely every 1.618 intervals, the golden ratio, a fingerprint of intelligent design. NASA classified the findings for 37 years. When finally declassified, the agency claimed instrument malfunction, but 3 independent analysis teams confirmed the same results. Something in deep space is sending us a message encoded in the fundamental mathematics of the universe itself. And this represents just the beginning of what we've discovered beyond Earth's atmosphere. Prepare yourselves. We begin. The dark side of the moon. The moon has been humanity's closest celestial companion for all of recorded history. Yet official lunar exploration ceased abruptly in 1972 after Apollo 17. No human has returned to the lunar surface in over 50 years, despite massive advances in technology, dramatic reductions in spaceflight costs, and numerous announced plans for return missions. The sudden abandonment of lunar exploration following 6 successful landings suggests something was discovered that fundamentally altered space exploration priorities. Examination of original Apollo mission audio recordings reveals conversations that never appeared in official NASA transcripts. In multiple instances, astronauts describe observing structures, lights, and geometric patterns on the lunar surface that defy natural explanation. These observations were systematically edited from public broadcasts and remain classified in NASA archives, accessible only through Freedom of Information Act requests that are routinely denied on national security grounds. And the Apollo 10 mission, which served as the final dress rehearsal before the first lunar landing, encountered something extraordinary during its orbit around the moon's far side. For 27 minutes, the spacecraft lost all radio contact with Earth, a predictable occurrence when passing behind the moon. However, declassified audio from this period reveals the crew discussing strange music-like radio transmissions that filled their headsets despite being completely cut off from all terrestrial radio sources. The transmissions were described as otherworldly whistling sounds that cycled through recognizable harmonic patterns. The astronauts debated whether to report the phenomenon, with one crew member expressing concern that doing so might jeopardize their careers and future missions. The recording suggests that mission commanders were explicitly instructed not to discuss certain observations publicly, indicating that protocols existed for managing unexpected discoveries. Photographic evidence from lunar missions contains numerous anomalies that remain unexplained by official sources. High-resolution images show geometric formations, casting shadows inconsistent with natural rock formations. Now, some structures appear to be constructed from materials with reflective properties that differ dramatically from surrounding lunar regolith. These formations are positioned in patterns that suggest deliberate placement rather than random geological processes. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, launched in 2009 to map the moon's surface in unprecedented detail, discovered multiple areas where imaging systems experienced systematic failures. These failure zones correspond precisely with locations where Apollo astronauts reported observing unusual structures and lights. The imaging failures are attributed to instrument malfunction, yet they occur consistently in the same locations across multiple orbital passes. Deep analysis of lunar seismometer data reveals vibrations that suggest the moon's interior structure differs dramatically from official models. The seismic patterns indicate that portions of the lunar interior may be hollow or contain massive open spaces that could not have formed through natural processes. Some researchers interpret these patterns as evidence of artificial excavation on scales that would require technology far beyond current human capabilities. Mineral analysis of lunar samples returned by Apollo missions contains elements and concentrations and combinations that should not exist according to current understanding of lunar formation. Some samples show evidence of having been exposed to extremely high temperatures and pressures that exceed anything possible through meteor impacts or volcanic activity. The mineral signatures suggest industrial processing using techniques that would require advanced metallurgical knowledge. Recent Chinese lunar missions have captured images of the moon's far side, showing structures that appear artificial when examined at high resolution. The Chinese National Space Administration released some of these images publicly before implementing stricter controls on lunar mission data. Independent analysts identified multiple formations with geometric precision and right-angle corners that are statistically impossible to occur in natural lunar geology. Radio telescopes monitoring the moon have detected electromagnetic emissions from specific locations on the far side that cycle through recognizable patterns. These emissions occur at frequencies and power levels that suggest technological rather than natural origins. The transmissions appear strongest during lunar night, when solar radiation interference is minimal, suggesting that their sources are powered by energy systems independent of sunlight. But the lunar mysteries represent merely the nearest examples of anomalies that extend throughout our solar system. The Martian enigma Mars has captured human imagination for centuries, but modern robotic exploration has revealed evidence that challenges everything we believed about the red planet's history. The planet's surface contains features that appear designed rather than naturally formed, suggesting that Mars may have hosted intelligent life during periods when the planet supported liquid water and a thicker atmosphere. The Cydonia region of Mars contains the famous face formation photographed by Viking 1 in 1976. While NASA dismissed this feature as a trick of light and shadow, subsequent high-resolution imaging revealed that the face maintains its anthropomorphic characteristics under various lighting conditions and viewing angles. The formation shows bilateral symmetry with precision that exceeds what random erosion could produce. Surrounding the face are multiple pyramidal structures arranged in geometric patterns that match mathematical relationships found in ancient Egyptian architecture. The D&M pyramid, named after its discoverers, displays five-sided geometry with angles and proportions that encode the same mathematical constants found in Earth's most sophisticated ancient monuments. The probability of these relationships occurring randomly approaches zero. Detailed analysis of Martian surface features reveals what appear to be the remains of massive canal systems that extend across thousands of kilometers. These channels show engineering characteristics including uniform depths, precise gradients for water flow, and junction points that suggest controlled distribution networks. The scale and sophistication of these systems would have required coordinated planning and construction capabilities. Mars rovers have photographed numerous objects on the Martian surface that resemble manufactured items. These artifacts include geometric shapes, objects with apparent mechanical components, and structures that maintain right angles and parallel lines, despite exposure to millions of years of erosion. Official explanations categorize these objects as unusual rock formations. But statistical analysis suggests that their concentration in certain areas exceeds random distribution patterns. The Gale crater, site of the Curiosity rover's exploration, contains sedimentary layers showing chemical signatures consistent with large-scale industrial pollution. Specific rock strata contain concentrations of rare earth elements and synthetic compounds in ratios that mirror what we observe from modern terrestrial manufacturing processes. These signatures appear in discrete layers separated by millions of years, suggesting multiple episodes of industrial activity. Spectroscopic analysis of the Martian atmosphere reveals trace amounts of gases that should not exist in natural planetary environments. These compounds are known to be extremely effective greenhouse gases that could have been deployed to modify Mars's climate. Their presence in precise ratios suggests intentional atmospheric engineering rather than random geological outgassing. Deep radar surveys of the Martian subsurface have identified enormous cavern systems that maintain remarkably regular geometric shapes. These underground spaces appear to be artificial excavations that could have housed substantial populations protected from harsh surface conditions. The caverns show evidence of connecting tunnels that form continent-spanning networks. Martian meteorites recovered on Earth contain microscopic structures that NASA scientists initially identified as fossilized bacteria. While this interpretation remains controversial, the structures show characteristics more consistent with artificially manufactured nanomachines than with biological organisms. The structures appear designed for specific molecular manipulation tasks that would require sophisticated nanotechnology to produce. Recent orbital surveys have discovered multiple locations on Mars where surface materials show evidence of exposure to intense nuclear radiation. The radiation signatures match patterns produced by nuclear weapons detonations rather than natural radioactive decay. The affected areas are distributed globally, suggesting that Mars may have experienced nuclear warfare on planetary scales. On some Martian surface features appear to be the remains of massive structures that collapsed under their own weight after losing internal structural support. These ruins show architectural elements, including what appear to be columns, archways, and foundation systems built from materials that differ from surrounding Martian geology. The construction techniques suggest understanding of engineering principles required for building in Mars's lower gravity. But Mars represents just one world in a solar system filled with impossible anomalies. The moons of mystery. Jupiter's moon Europa has become the focus of intense scientific interest due to evidence of a liquid water ocean beneath its frozen surface. However, certain observations about Europa suggest that this ocean may contain more than simple microbial life. Electromagnetic signatures from Europa indicate the presence of organized magnetic fields that could only be generated by massive metallic structures or technological installations operating beneath the ice. Tidal heating from Jupiter should create random patterns of surface cracking as Europa's ice shell flexes and breaks. Instead, Europa's surface shows geometric crack patterns with intersections that occur at mathematically precise angles. Some crack formations create enormous geometric shapes visible from orbit that suggest purposeful engineering of surface features. The Galileo spacecraft, which studied Jupiter's moons extensively before deliberately crashing into Jupiter in 2003, transmitted data showing anomalous energy readings from specific locations on Europa's surface. These energy signatures appeared in patterns suggesting artificial power generation on massive scales. The Galileo mission was terminated and crashed into Jupiter officially to prevent contamination of Europa, but the timing coincides suspiciously with these controversial discoveries. Thermal imaging of Europa reveals concentrated heat sources beneath the ice that maintain constant temperatures despite enormous variations in solar heating. These heat sources show distribution patterns inconsistent with natural geological activity, but consistent with planned placement of power generation facilities. The thermal signatures suggest energy production capacities that would require fusion or other advanced power technologies. Saturn's moon Enceladus ejects enormous plumes of water vapor from its south polar region. Though analysis of these plumes reveals complex organic molecules and energy-rich compounds at concentrations far exceeding what natural processes could produce. Some molecular signatures match industrial byproducts from advanced chemical manufacturing rather than simple geological venting. The regularity and consistency of Enceladus's plume activity suggests controlled venting rather than random geological processes. The plumes activate on precise schedules that correlate with orbital mechanics in ways that would require sophisticated timing mechanisms to coordinate. This precision suggests that the plume activity may be artificially managed. Iapetus, another Saturnian moon, displays one of the solar system's most bizarre features, a massive ridge that circles the moon's equator with precision that defies natural explanation. The ridge stands nearly 20 kilometers tall and maintains perfect equatorial alignment for thousands of kilometers. No known geological process could create such a formation, leading some researchers to propose that the ridge represents the remains of a massive artificial structure. The two-tone coloring of Iapetus, one hemisphere bright white, the other dark brown, shows a boundary so sharp and precise that it appears painted. Natural processes should create gradual color transitions, not the knife-edge demarcation observed on Iapetus. The coloring pattern suggests deliberate surface modification using technologies capable of altering entire planetary hemispheres. Titan, Saturn's largest moon, possesses a thick atmosphere and surface lakes of liquid methane. Radar mapping of Titan's surface reveals geometric formations beneath the hydrocarbon lakes that appear to be artificial structures. These formations maintain regular spacing and geometric relationships that suggest they were constructed according to planned layouts. Atmospheric analysis of Titan reveals chemical signatures indicating massive organic synthesis on scales that exceed what natural processes could achieve. The atmosphere contains precursor chemicals for advanced materials and fuels in concentrations that suggest industrial production. But some researchers propose that Titan may serve as a chemical manufacturing facility utilizing the moon's abundant hydrocarbons. Miranda, a moon of Uranus, shows surface features that appear to be massive excavations exposing internal structures. The moon's appearance suggests it was partially disassembled and then reassembled, creating a patchwork surface of mismatched terrain types. No natural process could create Miranda's bizarre surface features, leading to speculation about artificial modification or catastrophic structural failure. Deep space observations of the outer solar system moons reveal electromagnetic communications between these bodies that occur in organized patterns. The communications show modulation characteristics consistent with information transmission rather than natural electromagnetic noise. The communication network appears to operate continuously, suggesting ongoing coordination among automated systems. Yet even these local mysteries pale before evidence discovered at our solar system's farthest reaches. The Kuiper Belt Conundrum. Beyond Neptune's orbit lies the Kuiper Belt, a region populated by millions of icy bodies left over from the solar system's formation. Recent surveys of this distant region have revealed structures and patterns that challenge our understanding of natural solar system evolution. Some Kuiper Belt objects show characteristics suggesting artificial modification or construction. Oumuamua, the first confirmed interstellar object to pass through our solar system, displayed characteristics that defied explanation as a natural asteroid or comet. The object's extreme elongated shape, unusual acceleration as it left the solar system, and complete absence of cometary outgassing led astronomers to propose that it might be an artificial probe from another star system. Detailed analysis of Oumuamua's trajectory revealed that its path through the solar system allowed optimal observation of Earth from multiple angles, while maintaining velocities that would facilitate rapid departure. The trajectory appears optimized for reconnaissance rather than representing a random cosmic encounter. The object's acceleration away from the Sun showed characteristics matching light sail technology proposed for interstellar spacecraft. Oumuamua's surface reflectivity changed in patterns suggesting active surface modifications during its transit through our solar system. Natural objects maintain consistent reflective properties, but Oumuamua showed systematic changes that could indicate deployment of sensors or communication arrays. The object's tumbling rotation was inconsistent with natural asteroid behavior and could have been designed to provide all-sky observation capabilities. Other Kuiper Belt objects display anomalous orbital characteristics that suggest they were placed in their current orbits rather than forming naturally. Some objects occupy positions that are mathematically optimal for observing the inner solar system or for serving as navigation beacons for interstellar travel. The precision of these orbital placements exceeds what random gravitational interactions could produce. Radio observations of the outer solar system have detected organized electromagnetic emissions from specific Kuiper Belt locations. These signals show modulation patterns consistent with information encoding and transmission power levels that exceed what natural processes could generate. The signals appear to activate on schedules correlated with planetary alignments, suggesting they may be designed to communicate during optimal transmission windows. Spectroscopic analysis of certain Kuiper Belt objects reveals surface materials that should not exist in the outer solar system's frigid environment. These materials show chemical signatures consistent with advanced manufacturing processes and include compounds that would serve useful purposes in spacecraft construction or long-term energy storage. The materials appear concentrated on specific objects rather than being distributed randomly. Some distant Kuiper Belt objects maintain formations that suggest coordinated positioning. Multiple objects occupy orbits that keep them in fixed geometric relationships to each other, creating patterns visible when their positions are mapped. These formations would require continuous position maintenance to counteract gravitational perturbations, suggesting active orbital control systems. Deep surveys have identified Kuiper Belt objects with unusual thermal signatures, indicating internal heat sources independent of solar radiation. The heat generation appears controlled and steady, rather than showing the variations expected from radioactive decay or other natural processes. The thermal output suggests power generation systems operating continuously for potentially millions of years. Recent discoveries of extremely distant objects beyond the Kuiper Belt reveal a population of bodies with highly unusual orbital characteristics. These trans-Neptunian objects cluster in ways that gravitational simulations cannot reproduce using known solar system bodies. Some astronomers propose that these orbital anomalies indicate the presence of undiscovered massive objects, possibly including artificial structures of planetary scale. But the mysteries extend far beyond our local cosmic neighborhood. The Tabby star phenomenon, KIC 8462852, known as Tabby's star after astronomer Tabitha Boyajian, who first studied its anomalous behavior, displays light variations that defy conventional explanation. The star's brightness fluctuates in irregular patterns that cannot be explained by planetary transits, stellar pulsations, or any other known natural phenomenon. The magnitude and pattern of dimming suggests that massive structures are periodically blocking significant portions of the star's light. The Kepler Space Telescope observed Tabby's star dimming by up to 22% over irregular intervals, far exceeding what even a Jupiter-sized planet could cause. The dimming events show asymmetric shapes inconsistent with spherical objects passing in front of the star, and the light curves appear more consistent with massive irregular structures or swarms of objects in complex orbital configurations. Analysis of historical astronomical plates reveals that Tabby's star has been steadily dimming over the past century by approximately 20%. This long-term dimming pattern cannot be explained by any known stellar evolution process and suggests that something progressively massive is accumulating around the star. The accumulation rate appears too rapid for natural dust cloud formation and too organized for random cosmic debris. Infrared observations of Tabby's star reveal the absence of excess heat that should accompany natural explanations like dust clouds. Any material blocking 22% of a star's visible light should re-radiate that energy as infrared radiation, creating a detectable heat signature. And the lack of this signature suggests that whatever is blocking the light is either absorbing the energy completely or converting it into forms we cannot detect. Radio observations of Tabby's star have detected organized electromagnetic emissions at frequencies and modulation patterns that do not match any known natural stellar process. The radio signals appear strongest during periods when the star's visible light is dimmest, suggesting correlation between the dimming mechanism and radio transmissions. Some signals show characteristics consistent with information encoding rather than random electromagnetic noise. The irregular timing of Tabby's star's dimming events rules out any simple periodic phenomenon like orbiting planets or binary star companions. The dimming appears to follow patterns that suggest intelligent control rather than gravitational mechanics. Some events show rapid onset and gradual fading, while others display the opposite pattern, indicating different mechanisms or structures, causing various dimming events. Spectroscopic analysis during dimming events reveals selective wavelength blocking that appears designed to filter specific types of starlight while allowing others to pass through. This wavelength selectivity cannot occur naturally and suggests engineered materials with precise optical properties. The filtering characteristics would be useful for managing energy collection from the star while maintaining specific radiation environments. Multiple research teams have proposed that Tabby's star may be surrounded by a Dyson swarm, a theoretical megastructure consisting of millions of solar power collectors orbiting a star to harvest its energy. The irregular dimming patterns match computer simulations of partially constructed Dyson swarms, where individual collector units orbit independently, as the construction process would take centuries or millennia, explaining the progressive dimming observed historically. Alternative hypotheses suggest that the structures around Tabby's star might be massive spacecraft construction facilities or fleet assembly points. The scale of these facilities would require harnessing a substantial fraction of the star's total energy output, consistent with the observed dimming. The irregular patterns could represent construction phases, with different structures blocking light as they are built and deployed. Recent observations reveal that other stars in the same region of space show similar but less extreme dimming patterns. This clustering suggests that whatever is happening at Tabby's star represents part of larger-scale engineering activities affecting multiple star systems. The geographic correlation implies coordinated activities across interstellar distances. Yet Tabby's star represents just one of dozens of stars, now known to display anomalous dimming that defies natural explanation. The Fast Radio Burst Mystery. Fast radio bursts, FRBS, are intense pulses of radio energy lasting milliseconds that arrive at Earth from distant galaxies. Since their discovery in 2007, astronomers have detected hundreds of these events, but their origins remain deeply mysterious. The energy released in a single burst can exceed what our sun emits in an entire day, yet this energy is released in less time than a human eye blink. FRB 121102, the first repeating fast radio burst, has sent hundreds of pulses toward Earth from a dwarf galaxy 3 billion light-years away. The repetition pattern appears non-random, with bursts arriving in organized sequences that suggest deliberate signaling rather than natural astrophysical processes. Statistical analysis reveals periodicities and patterns that are difficult to explain through known stellar phenomena. The precision and narrow bandwidth of FRBS indicate that they originate from coherent emission processes, similar to lasers or masers, rather than thermal radiation from hot gases. Natural astrophysical processes typically produce broadband radiation across wide frequency ranges, but FRBS concentrate enormous energy into extremely narrow frequency bands. This concentration requires physics that we associate with engineered systems rather than natural phenomena. Some FRBS arrive at Earth after passing through regions of space that should have dispersed and weakened their signals beyond detectability. The fact that these signals remain detectable across billions of light-years suggests transmission power levels that exceed what any known natural process could generate. The implied energy expenditure seems wasteful unless the bursts serve specific communication or detection purposes. Chain analysis of FRB arrival times reveals patterns consistent with beacon systems designed for navigation or communication across galactic distances. The bursts arrive with timing precision that would allow triangulation of source positions with extreme accuracy. Multiple FRB sources positioned at known locations could serve as a galaxy-wide positioning system analogous to GPS. The frequency drift observed in many FRBS shows characteristics that match theoretical predictions for signals transmitted through engineered plasma lenses. These plasma optical systems could focus and amplify signals for transmission across enormous distances, explaining how relatively modest transmitters could generate the observed signal strengths. The plasma lens technology represents a theoretical application of physics that humans have not yet achieved. Some FRBS show polarization characteristics that suggest the signals pass through artificial magnetic field configurations. Natural cosmic magnetic fields create specific polarization signatures, but some FRBS display polarization that would require magnetic field geometries that do not occur naturally. The field configurations could represent containment systems for fusion reactors or magnetic accelerators used in signal generation. So correlation analysis reveals that some FRBS arrive at Earth simultaneously with other cosmic events including gamma-ray bursts, supernova detections, and gravitational wave observations. This correlation suggests that FRBS might serve as announcement signals, alerting distant observers to interesting astrophysical events. The timing precision required for such announcements implies sophisticated detection networks and faster-than-light communication methods. Recent discoveries show that Earth receives FRBS from sources distributed across the observable universe, in patterns that appear organized rather than random. The source distribution matches what we might expect from a communication network designed to provide coverage across galactic distances. The network density increases in regions of space containing higher concentrations of galaxies and stars. Some FRB signals contain embedded modulation patterns that appear to encode information beyond the simple pulse structure. Detailed analysis reveals nested periodicities and amplitude variations that could represent layered data transmission, similar to modern digital communication protocols. Decoding these potential messages remains beyond current analytical capabilities, but the patterns suggest intentional information encoding. The energy source required to power FRB transmissions on the observed scales would require harnessing entire stars or black holes. The engineering required to build such power systems represents technology thousands or millions of years beyond current human capabilities. Yet the abundance and distribution of FRBs suggests that such engineering might be common among advanced civilizations. But radio signals represent only one method by which cosmic intelligences might communicate: the WOW signal and its descendants. On August 15, 1977, the Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio detected the strongest narrowband radio signal ever recorded from space. Astronomer Jerry Amon circled the printout and wrote "WOW" in the margin, giving the signal its famous name. The transmission lasted 72 seconds, matched the expected signature of an artificial extraterrestrial signal, and has never been detected again despite decades of follow-up observations. The WOW signal arrived at 1,420 megahertz, the precise frequency of neutral hydrogen emissions that is considered the most likely frequency for interstellar communication. This frequency is protected from terrestrial transmissions by international agreement, making Earth-based interference unlikely. The signal's bandwidth was extremely narrow, less than 10 kilohertz, indicating a coherent transmission source rather than natural broadband emission. The signal's intensity varied in precisely the pattern expected from a transmission source, as Earth's rotation carried the telescope beam across the sky. This pattern confirms that the source was indeed in space, rather than from terrestrial interference. The signal reached peak intensity when the telescope pointed directly at the source, then faded symmetrically as the beam moved away, exactly matching theoretical predictions for extraterrestrial signals. And multiple attempts to relocate the WOW signal source have failed to detect any repeat transmissions. This absence could indicate that the signal was a one-time transmission, that the source operates on schedules spanning decades, or that the transmission was directional and Earth has moved out of the beam path. Each explanation carries profound implications for the nature of the signal. Advanced analysis of the WOW signal reveals subtle frequency shifts consistent with the Doppler effect from a source orbiting a star or moving through space. The velocity implied by these shifts matches what we would expect from a planet orbiting in the habitable zone of a sun-like star. This orbital motion signature strengthens the case that the signal originated from a planetary system. Since the WOW signal, astronomers have detected dozens of similar narrowband signals that defy easy explanation. While most can eventually be attributed to terrestrial interference or satellite transmissions, approximately 15% remain unexplained even after exhaustive analysis. These mystery signals share characteristics suggesting artificial origins, but lack the repeat observations necessary for confirmation. The BLC-1 signal detected by Breakthrough Listen in 2020 appeared to originate from Proxima Centauri, our nearest stellar neighbor. The signal showed frequency drift consistent with transmission from a rotating planet and appeared only when telescopes pointed at Proxima Centauri, disappearing when pointed elsewhere. Though later attributed to interference, the signal's initial characteristics perfectly matched expectations for an artificial extraterrestrial transmission. Statistical analysis of unexplained radio signals reveals clustering in specific regions of sky that contain higher densities of sun-like stars. This clustering suggests that signals may indeed originate from stellar systems capable of supporting life rather than representing random interference. The geographic correlation strengthens as detection sensitivity improves and more signals are cataloged. Some mysterious radio signals show modulation patterns that appear too complex for natural astrophysical processes. These patterns include nested periodicities, apparent phase shifts, and amplitude variations that resemble information encoding. While human communication protocols can create similar patterns, the cosmic origin of these signals suggests either natural processes we don't understand or artificial transmissions from technological civilizations. Recent machine learning analysis of archival radio telescope data has identified thousands of previously overlooked candidate signals. Many of these weak signals show characteristics consistent with extremely distant artificial transmissions that are barely above detection thresholds. The sheer number of candidates suggests that artificial radio emissions may be far more common in the universe than previously believed. Some researchers propose that the absence of obvious extraterrestrial signals represents not silence, but rather our inability to recognize advanced communication methods. Civilizations millions of years beyond human development might use quantum communication, gravitational wave modulation, or neutrino beams, technologies that would be invisible to our current detection methods. We may be immersed in cosmic communications without possessing the instruments to perceive them. But electromagnetic signals represent only the most obvious method for detecting extraterrestrial intelligence. The Fermi Paradox Solution. The Fermi Paradox asks why, in a universe containing billions of potentially habitable planets, we detect no evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations. Physicist Enrico Fermi famously asked, "Where is everybody?" during a discussion about the likelihood of alien life. The apparent contradiction between high probability of extraterrestrial civilizations and complete absence of evidence has haunted scientists for decades. Recent discoveries suggest that the Fermi paradox may rest on false assumptions about what alien civilizations would look like and how we might detect them. Advanced civilizations may not build detectable megastructures or transmit obvious radio signals. Instead, they might employ technologies and strategies specifically designed to remain undetectable while achieving their goals. The dark forest hypothesis proposes that intelligent civilizations intentionally hide to avoid detection by potentially hostile alien species. In this scenario, the universe contains many civilizations, but all remain silent because advertising one's existence invites destruction. The first civilization to reveal itself becomes a target for preemptive attack from others seeking to eliminate future competition. Evidence supporting the dark forest hypothesis includes the suspicious absence of obvious alien artifacts in our solar system, despite billions of years, when such artifacts could have accumulated. The solar system appears pristine, not because aliens never visited, but because visitors deliberately removed all traces of their presence to avoid leaving clues that might reveal their existence to others. Alternative explanations suggest that advanced civilizations transcend physical existence, uploading their consciousness into computational substrates that require minimal energy and emit no detectable signatures. These digital civilizations might exist throughout the galaxy while remaining completely invisible to our current detection methods. We search for radio signals while advanced civilizations have long since abandoned electromagnetic communication. The zoo hypothesis proposes that aliens deliberately avoid contact with humanity, choosing instead to observe our development from a distance. In this scenario, Earth exists within a protected zone where alien interference is prohibited by galactic law or custom. We detect no aliens because they enforce strict non-contact protocols designed to allow emerging civilizations to develop naturally. Evidence for the zoo hypothesis includes the suspicious absence of obvious alien contact, despite the high probability that aliens should have discovered Earth by now. The fact that we exist as a technological species at all might indicate that aliens have protected Earth from cosmic hazards that would have otherwise prevented intelligent life from developing. Our survival represents the proof of alien stewardship. Some researchers propose that most alien civilizations destroy themselves shortly after achieving technological sophistication. This great filter hypothesis suggests that the path from primitive life to stable interstellar civilization contains one or more nearly insurmountable obstacles. Humanity's failure to detect alien civilizations could indicate that we approach our own filter event. Analysis of technological development trajectories reveals several potential great filter candidates. Nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and genetic engineering all represent technologies that could easily destroy civilizations that develop them without sufficient wisdom and caution. The fact that we have already developed several of these technologies suggests either that we have passed the filter or that we stand on its brink. Alternative great filter scenarios place the insurmountable obstacle in our past rather than our future. Perhaps the emergence of life itself is extraordinarily rare, or the evolution of intelligence represents a cosmic fluke. In this interpretation, humanity may be genuinely alone in the observable universe, not because aliens destroyed themselves, but because they never existed in the first place. Our recent discoveries of extremophile organisms thriving in Earth's most hostile environments suggest that life can develop under far broader conditions than previously believed. The abundance and diversity of extremophiles indicates that the emergence of life may not be a great filter. Instead, the filter may involve the leap from simple to complex life, or from complex life to technological civilization. But perhaps the most disturbing explanation for the Fermi paradox involves civilizations that exist but remain fundamentally incomprehensible to human perception. The interdimensional hypothesis. Standard SETI approaches assume that alien civilizations exist in the same three spatial dimensions and one time dimension that humans perceive. However, modern physics suggests that additional spatial dimensions may exist beyond our direct perception. Advanced civilizations might have discovered methods for accessing these higher dimensions, effectively making them invisible to beings like humans who remain confined to lower dimensional existence. String theory and related mathematical frameworks require 10 or 11 total dimensions for internal consistency. Most of these extra dimensions are believed to be compactified, curled up so small that they cannot be directly observed. However, sufficiently advanced technology might enable manipulation of these dimensions, allowing travel or communication through dimensional spaces that remain inaccessible to conventional physics. UFO encounters often describe phenomena that violate known physics, objects making impossible maneuvers, disappearing instantly, or passing through solid matter. These reports become more comprehensible if we assume the objects are moving through higher spatial dimensions. What appears as instantaneous disappearance from our three-dimensional perspective might represent simple movement along a fourth spatial dimension. The interdimensional hypothesis explains why aliens might be present on Earth while remaining undetectable by our instruments. Beings existing primarily in higher dimensions might interact with our dimensional space only briefly or partially, so creating fleeting observations that cannot be captured consistently by scientific instruments designed to measure only three-dimensional phenomena. Some quantum physics experiments reveal behaviors suggesting that particles can access spaces beyond our normal three dimensions. Quantum tunneling, entanglement, and other non-local phenomena hint at connectivity through dimensional spaces we cannot directly observe. So advanced civilizations might have learned to manipulate these quantum properties for practical applications, including faster-than-light travel. The mathematics of higher dimensional geometry reveals that beings in higher dimensions can observe and interact with lower dimensional spaces in ways that appear magical or impossible to lower dimensional inhabitants. A being in four spatial dimensions could observe the interior of a three-dimensional closed box without opening it, and remove objects from locked safes, or appear and disappear at will within our perceived reality. Ancient religious and mystical traditions across cultures describe beings that appear from nowhere, pass through walls, and vanish without trace. Characteristics consistent with higher dimensional entities briefly interacting with our dimensional space. These traditions might represent humanity's earliest encounters with interdimensional visitors, interpreted through the cultural and conceptual frameworks available to ancient peoples. Modern physics experiments have detected subtle anomalies in gravitational and electromagnetic measurements that some researchers interpret as evidence of energy bleeding into our dimension from higher spaces. These anomalies appear most strongly in regions of high energy density, such as particle accelerators and nuclear reactors, suggesting that extreme energy conditions might create temporary dimensional interfaces. The interdimensional hypothesis resolves the Fermi paradox by explaining why we detect no obvious aliens, despite high probability of their existence. Civilizations that master dimensional physics would naturally migrate toward higher dimensional existence, where resources are less constrained and dangers from lower dimensional catastrophes are avoided. Advanced aliens exist, but have transcended our dimensional space. Some researchers propose that consciousness itself represents a higher dimensional phenomenon that interfaces with three-dimensional brains. This model explains subjective experiences, free will, and other aspects of consciousness that remain mysterious in purely materialist frameworks. Alien intelligences might interact with human consciousness directly while remaining invisible to physical detection instruments. But dimensional transcendence represents only one possible path for civilizations seeking to escape physical limitations: the simulation hypothesis. Philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed that if civilization achieves the ability to create high-fidelity simulations of reality, they would likely create enormous numbers of such simulations. In this scenario, the overwhelming majority of all conscious experiences would occur within simulations rather than in base physical reality. Statistical reasoning suggests we are far more likely to be simulated beings than real ones. Evidence supporting the simulation hypothesis includes mathematical and physical laws that appear surprisingly simple and computable. The universe operates according to relatively straightforward equations that can be implemented in computer algorithms. This computational tractability seems suspiciously convenient, as if reality were designed to be simulatable rather than representing fundamental truth. Quantum mechanics reveals that reality exists in probabilistic states until observed, at which point probability waves collapse into definite values. This behavior mirrors exactly what we would expect from a simulation optimizing computational resources. The simulation only calculates detailed values when observers check them, conserving processing power by leaving unobserved regions in low-resolution probability states. And the speed of light represents an absolute limit on information transfer throughout the universe. This constraint makes perfect sense as a computational limitation. The simulation cannot process information faster than the refresh rate of its underlying hardware. The light speed limit prevents paradoxes that would crash the simulation if information could travel instantaneously. Planck units define minimum possible distances, times, and energies in our universe. Below these scales, and physics itself breaks down, space and time lose meaning. These minimum units appear suspiciously similar to pixel and frame rate limitations in digital simulations. Reality might be quantized, not because of fundamental physics, but because it runs on digital hardware. Some physics experiments reveal glitches and anomalies that seem like computational errors. Particles occasionally violate conservation laws by amounts small enough to escape detection, except in extremely precise measurements. These violations might represent rounding errors in the simulation's math, small mistakes that accumulate in calculations involving enormous numbers of particles. The cosmic censorship hypothesis states that singularities, where physics equations break down, always hide behind event horizons, where they cannot be observed. This convenient feature prevents observers from detecting regions where the simulation fails to compute valid results. So the universe protects itself from observers discovering its computational limitations. Mathematical analyses reveal that our universe's physical constants appear fine-tuned to allow complexity and consciousness. Tiny changes to fundamental constants would create universes where stars, planets, and life could not exist. This fine-tuning suggests purposeful design rather than random accident, exactly what we'd expect if our universe represents a simulation optimized for producing interesting phenomena. If we live in a simulation, the simulation's creators must exist in a more fundamental reality with different physical laws. These base reality beings would appear godlike from our perspective, capable of creating and destroying entire universes, existing beyond our time and space. The many alien encounter reports describe entities possessing precisely these characteristics. The simulation hypothesis explains the Fermi paradox by proposing that our universe represents a simulation focused on Earth and human development. Alien civilizations might not exist because the simulation didn't bother rendering them. We detect no aliens because they were never programmed into our reality in the first place. Alternative simulation scenarios suggest that alien civilizations exist, but occupy different simulation instances that rarely interact with ours. The apparent absence of aliens might indicate that cross-simulation contact requires computational resources that simulation operators allocate sparingly. We exist in a quarantine simulation designed to study human development in isolation. But whether simulated or physical, our reality contains structures that suggest intelligent design at cosmic scales. The cosmological conspiracy. The cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang, contains anomalies that cosmologists call the axis of evil. These statistical irregularities suggest that the universe possesses a preferred direction, violating the assumption that the cosmos should appear the same in all directions. The patterns align suspiciously with the plane of our solar system, as if the universe were designed with Earth in mind. This alignment appears statistically impossible to occur by chance. The probability of random cosmic microwave background fluctuations aligning with our solar system's geometry approaches 1 in several million. The correlation suggests either a massive conspiracy in how we interpret cosmological data or genuine evidence that Earth occupies a special position in cosmic structure. The universe's large-scale structure shows organization into vast filaments and voids, creating a cosmic web. This structure formed from tiny quantum fluctuations in the early universe that were inflated to cosmic scales. However, the specific pattern of filaments shows mathematical regularities that some researchers interpret as evidence of design rather than random development from initial conditions. A detailed analysis of cosmic expansion rates reveals that the universe appears fine-tuned to remain in a narrow stability zone. Slightly faster expansion would have prevented galaxy formation. Slightly slower expansion would have caused the universe to collapse. The precision required to maintain this balance suggests either extraordinary luck or purposeful cosmic engineering. Dark energy, which drives accelerating cosmic expansion, appears calibrated to almost exactly balance gravitational attraction. This balance creates a flat universe that can expand eternally while maintaining structures like galaxies and stars. The coincidence of this balance occurring during the epoch when intelligent life emerges seems too convenient for random chance. Some cosmological models propose that our universe exists within a larger multiverse, containing infinite variations with different physical laws. In this framework, the fine-tuning we observe represents selection bias. We necessarily find ourselves in a universe capable of supporting observers. However, this explanation requires accepting the existence of infinite unobservable universes to explain features of our single observable universe. Alternative theories suggest that advanced civilizations from previous universal cycles engineered the Big Bang to create a universe optimized for life and intelligence. The fine-tuned constants and cosmic structures represent deliberate design by being so advanced they could manipulate the fundamental properties of reality itself. We exist in an artificially constructed cosmos. Evidence for cosmic engineering includes mathematical relationships among physical constants that appear too precise for coincidence. The strength of gravity, electromagnetic force, and nuclear forces relate to each other through simple mathematical ratios. These relationships could represent design specifications from cosmic engineers rather than fundamental properties of nature. The holographic principle suggests that all information in a three-dimensional volume can be encoded on its two-dimensional boundary surface. This property means our entire visible universe could be a projection from information encoded on its cosmological horizon. We might inhabit a cosmic hologram projected into apparent three-dimensional reality. Now, some physicists propose that consciousness plays a fundamental role in creating reality through observation. In this interpretation, the universe exists in probability states until consciousness observes and collapses probabilities into definite values. Reality itself might represent a collaborative creation between the cosmic design and the conscious observers it produces. But cosmic engineering represents only one scale of possible artificiality: the temporal conspiracy. Einstein's equations permit time travel under certain extreme conditions, including rotating black holes and traversable wormholes. While these solutions appear impractical given current technology, sufficiently advanced civilizations might harness these phenomena for temporal manipulation. The apparent absence of time travelers could indicate either that time travel remains impossible or that time travelers successfully conceal their activities. The Novikov self-consistency principle proposes that time travel can only create timelines that are self-consistent. No paradoxes are permitted. In this framework, time travelers from our future necessarily avoid actions that would prevent their own existence. Their interference in the past appears natural and unremarkable because it represents part of the timeline that led to their existence. Some historical events show characteristics suggesting knowledge of future developments. Ancient texts contain descriptions of technologies and astronomical knowledge that their authors should not have possessed. These anachronistic elements might represent information leakage from time travelers who failed to completely conceal their presence in the past. The UFO phenomenon shows patterns consistent with time travel rather than interstellar visitation. UFO sightings increase during historically significant periods and often occur near locations that will become important in future events. This temporal and geographic clustering suggests that future humans are observing key historical moments rather than aliens conducting random reconnaissance. Analysis of UFO witness descriptions reveals that alleged aliens often appear remarkably human-like, despite claims of extraterrestrial origin. These beings show characteristics more consistent with genetically modified or cybernetically enhanced future humans than independent evolutionary lineages from other worlds. The aliens might represent our own descendants visiting from various future timelines. Some researchers propose that the acceleration of technological development represents a temporal feedback loop. Future humans travel backward, providing technological hints that accelerate development toward the point where time travel becomes possible. Each iteration of the loop advances technology slightly, creating the exponential growth curve we observe. The Mandela effect, widespread false memories of historical events that never occurred, might represent evidence of timeline alterations by time travelers. When the past is changed, most evidence updates to match the new timeline. Some, but human memories, sometimes retain fragments of previous timeline versions. These memory inconsistencies mark the locations where temporal manipulation occurred. Quantum mechanics permits particles to influence their own past states through retrocausal effects. Some experiments show particles apparently receiving information from their future states, violating normal causality. These quantum temporal effects might scale to macroscopic systems in ways we don't yet understand, enabling practical time travel at human scales. The apparent fine-tuning of universal constants for life might represent time travel-based cosmic engineering. Future civilizations achieved such power that they reached back to the Big Bang itself, adjusting fundamental parameters to ensure that evolution would eventually produce intelligent life capable of time travel. The entire universe represents a bootstrap paradox of self-creating complexity. Alternative temporal theories propose that our timeline represents one branch of an enormous multiverse tree. Time travelers don't change their own past, but create new branch timelines with different outcomes. The absence of obvious time travelers in our timeline indicates that we exist on a branch where time travel remains undiscovered or unused, while parallel branches host active temporal traffic. But temporal manipulation might represent only one application of consciousness technologies that transcend conventional physics.